where storytelling meets music, where words fail, music speaks. Now, tonight we're going to be talking all things music, storytelling, and how sometimes a melody can be our only mode of expression where words fail. Now, Unsta, there are artists that perform songs, then there are artists who tell stories that stay with us long after the music fades, and Jabulile Majola is one of those artists. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Let's Talk. I'm your host, Owami K.
And I am Unati Sandi, also known as Unsta the Star Notiboy Kamakuru Notamkulu, and I am the second half of this beautiful pair. Today we explore the stories behind the songs, the experiences that shape them, and the journey that has made Jabulile Majola one of South Africa's most compelling voices in our generation. But before we begin our conversation, let's take a quick look at this short inset.
Man, Jabulile Majola was absolutely amazing. The way his music is so healing, so spiritual. Like, you just had to be there in order to experience the full thing. And it's just like the way he blends like folklore music with like vernac and African style, and it's just like a perfect mixture. Like, it was a 10 out of 10 experience. Like, if you haven't seen Jabulile Majola live, you have to see him live. Like, it was absolutely amazing.
That is a very beautiful insight about how the career and art that Jabulile Majola creates is not only timeless, but it has a very real impact on the people who listen to it.
That's true, Unsta. Now, Jabulile's foundations in the church led him to discover a passion for singing at a very early age, and he was raised bilingually. So his obsession with language involved into writing poetry that was expressed through rap songs that were recorded in rural studios at Greytown.
Now, following high school, Jabulani moved to Cape Town and began to explore folk music, delving into imisebenzi of the likes of Paul Simon, the legendary Babu Joseph Shabalala, and Leonard Cohen. Inspired by their storytelling, he directed his own talent with the pen towards a project he named after his mother, Umamu Jabulile Majola.
That's beautiful. Now, through his writing, Jabulani explores his complex identity with tremendous vulnerability and a voice that carries a depth of emotion that is only matched by his poignant lyricism. And today on Let's Talk, we'll be talking about that journey and how we got to be blessed by Isitifiketi. Jabulile, welcome to Let's Talk.
Thank you. Wow, that was a hell of an intro. I do appreciate that.
Thank you so much for coming to Let's Talk, right? So your ID name is Jabulani, but you go by Jabulile in honor of your mother, right? So having been raised in a children's home, what does it mean for you to honor your mom by carrying her name through your art?
I think the way in which I carry the name is coming from a realization of who I actually am. You know, I think not only do orphans have this question of who am I think everybody is faced and confronted by this question maybe earlier in our lives, but also some of us, it happens later on when we are really struggling with life. You know, when you're a student and you have nothing, you know, or when you are about to maybe make a transition in your life. I think this question starts to confront you way more. And so many times we dodge it by the certain distractions that we have in our lives. Maybe it can be friends, maybe it can be the certain aspirations that we have, and putting all our lives and all of our work into that. I think that question came to me when I was way younger because of the types of things that I was struggling with at the time. You know, I always wanted to know where I belong. I always wanted to know what makes me who I am. And there's something that is very beautiful about African culture is that it places us, you know, the boys hang out with the boys, the younger girls hang out with the younger girls, and the old people have their place in society as well. And so I always wanted to see where I actually fit in, not only in my society and not only in the cultural context, but where do I fit in the world as well? With the type of story that I have, it's something that I really wanted to know. And it took me to go on a journey of self-discovery, which was very painful. But I think the only type of healing that you receive from that is acceptance, where you actually get to accept who you are and what this has made you. The experience of not actually growing up with a biological mother and a biological father is something that I started to carry as a part of my healing journey, to accept Uguti. Yes, this is maybe how my story started, but this is not how it's going to end. And so when I embraced that for what it was, I think this is what led me to get to a point where I actually felt like I can actually make this a whole project, because there's a lot of people that are also on the same journey of discovery. I think when you have breath in your lungs, you are on a journey of discovery. And maybe it's not necessarily who are you, but there's so many things that you will learn along the way.
That's beautiful. It's a way of owning your identity and knowing who you are, right? So having discovered who you are and now taken on this name, what was your reaction the first time you heard people in the audience call you by Jabulile?
I think it felt like something that was meant to be. I don't know how to explain it. When I think it was also a matter of timing as well, because I think if I had done this maybe 10 years ago, it wouldn't have, the young people say, slapped. It wouldn't have slapped like it does now. I'm trying to appeal to the young people. I think it really felt like it was something that was meant to be, because I had actually gone through a journey where I'm able to accept this. You must remember that the story of who I am is not something that was always appealing to me, because many a times I wanted to not actually be thinking about it. I wanted to not confront the demons, so to say, But when I actually went through that journey of actually healing, and in the process of healing, you actually lose more than you gain, because you just have to accept things for what they are and the way that they are, and there's nothing that you can change. I think you would gain a lot if you could change your situation, but most of the time you don't get to change what happened. You don't get to change where you actually come from, but the healing actually allows you to change where you're going to end up, And so when people call me that name, I think because of where I'm at in my life, it's reaffirming Uguti, where you come from does not determine where you'll end up if you have that perspective of Uguti, hey, I actually don't want to end up in a certain place because of where I come from. And so when I hear that song, I think it's an echo of hope, for somebody maybe out there in the crowd that is going maybe through something similar or something even worse. You know what I'm saying? Uguti na bengafika kule ndawo where they, I don't know, I don't want to call it self-actualization, but where they realize who they actually really are, because you can't be who you are because of where you come from, but you can be who you are because of what you choose to do with the information that you know. And so, yeah.
At what point of your journey did you see hope? Because I'm listening to you detail how your journey has not always been that appealing.
Yeah.
At what point did you see a ray of a light at any point of Ubumba?
Yeah, I think it's when I had lost my sister, and her name was Hope. When I had lost my sister, I started thinking about what actually is hope. We like to talk about hope, and it's all this like fluffy stuff, and but what actually is hope? And we also like to see hope as the light at the end of the tunnel. And because we have this idea, it's something that is about to happen, we are always disappointed when it happens in the way that it was supposed to happen. I noticed that impilo is not to be taken personally, because there's a result that happens just because it's how life works, and then it doesn't happen to how we expected it's going to happen. I remember speaking about this during a show, a Hue Cafe in Durban, by the way. People always ask, why? When are you coming back? I said this thing once, Wuti. Hey, I always thought that I was supposed to experience love in a certain way. And already I was wrong when I was born, because I was loved by white people that adopted me, And you always think, no, it's supposed to be this way. And funny enough, because I saw it like that, but I was still thinking, no, if I meet my girlfriend and my wife, this is how I think it's going to happen. But lo muntu, also grew up in their own way. They have their own battles that they had to face and all of that stuff. It just doesn't happen the way we always expected it. From that perspective, I started to learn what e-timber is something that it's very much something that is in the present that can propel you to the future. So it's not about looking for the light at the end of the tunnel. It's about finding the light right here that will help you to the end of the tunnel. I think sometimes when we see light at the end of the tunnel, it doesn't give us the drive to actually get there, because sometimes it's just too far. What if the tunnel was longer than you think? But just because you see the light at the end of the tunnel, you have this fake reality of what it's actually going to look like. What if it's something that we could find here, and that's something that propels us to whatever is out there at the end of the tunnel. If it's disappointing, you can live with it, because you've already have this you have this hope that it sort of helps you be secure and grounded in who you are. And then if it's something that is good, you also get to embrace it in a realistic way as well. And so I think when I was struggling with that idea, as I had lost my sister, acceptance was one of those things where I realized, dude, as in, there is a present as well. I can actually either worry about the future that is not even happening to me, or actually make decisions that are going to affect the trajectory of my life. And so that was what hope was for me. It's tangible. I can feel it because it's here in the present.
So it's not something that's far-fetched,
Yeah,
but ilapha.
exactly.
Now let's go to your music. Some people might actually be shocked to hear that you started off as a rapper.
Yes.
It's okay. Everyone starts somewhere.
I love where I come from.
All right, I'll take your word for that.
Yeah.
But you grew up in Greytown, and I believe you were surrounded by a lot of gospel, and you had folk tales.
Yeah.
E-rap, how do we get to e-rap?
E-rap was a very important thing that happened in Biloniam, because it taught me to work. You know, I think as much as I'm not into it anymore, I think we don't appreciate how much of a worker you need to be when it comes to lyricism, because you have to have something to say. And to have something to say, you must have experienced life. You know, it's very easy to become a very intellectual rapper that just knows things off their mind. But when you're actually rapping a lived experience, it's something to behold. And that's how I fell in love with rap music, because I was listening to Abantu Abanjengo Zola 7, Abantu Abanjengo Pro Kid, who were talking about who they were and where they were coming from. You know, not from a place of where I come from is so amazing. It was like, hey, this is where I come from. It's the worst of the worst, but look at the person that this made me. And then I think from that point, I started to realize what I know, like, there's something powerful about this, because these are people that have actually embraced who they are, and they have managed to actually rally a lot of people that are coming from the same places that they are, and actually are encouraging them to dream for more that is out there. And so that's how I fell in love with rap music. I fell in love with the way in which poetry works within the rhythm of rap music. You know what I'm saying? And so I really started to obsess over it. And I think the reason why I began to obsess over that is it was a very good distraction from the questions that I had about myself. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's very easy to fall in love with your art. I remember when my sister had passed, music was a very good distraction from actually facing the grief, until the point where I had to actually face it for what it was, because you start to see how it just erodes relationship. Things just start to fall apart. There's a point where you have to face yourself. Rap music was that for me as well. I don't see it as an escape, but I saw it as a soundtrack of my life experience for what it was, you know. And so that's how I fell in love with rap music, and that's how I was really, really doing it. Because I was really doing it when I was doing it.
Which I was doing it.
I was that guy.
Speaking in past tense.
But I totally get your point, Culture, that you used music as a way to sort of take a moment away from the pain that you were facing with.
Yeah.
But it gets to a point, everything gets to a point.
Where you have to face it, yeah. I had a conversation with my manager recently where he was like, you know, maturity is part of the process where you realize you don't have to express yourself only through music. You can also use your words and have conversations with people. And, you know, I'm glad that I'm in that point in my life where I've grown up, and not necessarily physically, but also emotionally, also spiritually to the point where I can actually express myself in all of these different ways. It's very enriching. It's very empowering to be able to be creative, but it can also be limiting if that's the only thing that you think will help you with everything. And so I'm very grateful, Guti. It's something that I think it's something that led me to want to explore the world. It was music, because I always knew that I don't want to end up in the same place and just doing what everybody's doing, but music gave me that thing with, I can do it. If Broke did it, I can do it. Me too. You know what I'm saying? Those things are very important for young people, And that's why I really encourage Abandabasha, if they really believe that there's something they need to be doing, they need to chase it. I mean, be logical about it, but chase it, And so, because it is something that is, it's beautiful.
Now, your project is titled Isitifiketi, which is a very heavy title because this is one of the most important documents one can ever own, because it basically validates your existence. It confirms that Ujabulani uyaphila, unathi uyaphila. Now, tell us about the title of that project. Why Isitifiketi exactly? And what did you want to affirm by giving it that title?
I named the project Isitifiketi because I think that's the biggest question. Who am I is the biggest question. Because who am I? When you say who am I, you are saying why. Why was I born? You know what I'm saying? I think you can't answer the why was I born without answering who am I first. I think it's an ongoing question. I think everybody, I don't care if you think you've realized who you are. It's a daily discovery. The sad part about life is that sometimes we are in relationships and we are trying to learn the other person, but we don't even know who we are. And I mean, it's how sometimes things just fall apart, and when they fall apart we don't know why, but we don't say with it I am the problem, probably, you know what I'm saying. And so Isitifiketi was I used that word because Isitifiketi is also it's a common term for when ingane isandukuzalwa and all of those things, and when all of these things that are happening in the country, let's say you are leaving the country, let's say you are applying for a school, they want you to certificate, they want to know who you are. I mean, from the beginning of your life, you are constantly confronted with this question of Utuban, and I think Isitifiketi is something that I know that it's such I don't want to call it eternal, but it's a perpetual term that we use constantly, you know what I'm saying? Because it's that thing of kind of reaffirming who you are. Who I am today might not be who I am in 10 years because I would have realized certain things. That's what I wanted to that's what I wanted to sort of embody with this project. It's an unending question, but it's also like a perpetual need is the documentation. You understand? And so
I love that. It's a perpetual need, but it's also about understanding who you are as a person, right? So earlier on, when I asked you about Jabulile, you had mentioned that it's sort of a way of ownership, taking ownership of where you come from, right? So I think part of where we come from and the way we grow stays with us, right? So having grown up in KZN, what were some of the stories that you heard growing up? Because what were some of the stories that you heard growing up, and which of them stayed with you that you carry with you today?
Not long ago I actually posted this on my Instagram. So if you follow me on Instagram and you actually follow me for real, you would have seen the story. A story that changed my life, I think. There was this teacher where she was so old. I really believe that grade 1 teachers must be like at least 65 years old. She was so old and she always had time for us. And she's no longer with us. But I remember the care and the love that she had for children. I remember she would, I went to this rural school because my father started managing this school on the farms and all of that. And funding it and all of those things. And then we decided, no, I'm going to take you guys to this school. This is how you're going to learn. This is Zulu. I'm not going to take you to that Model C primary school. We didn't like him for that. But now when I look back, I'm like, thank God he did that. We used to walk to school. And so the type of children that we're with were underprivileged, some of them, but Mama Nyeng always had time for all of them. He's like, she would just call you on the desk, Jablan, wozangis, and then you go there and you tell her your life, your problems, and all of those things. She was a very good listener. But I remember she once told the story of Unwabu Nentulo, which is the blue-headed lizard and the chameleon. And it basically goes, okay, so the creator created the earth and all of those things. And then he sent two animals to either proclaim life or death over the human race. Unoabu, he gave the message of life, immortality, and then he gave Intulo, which is the blue-headed lizard, the message of mortality, I mean, which is why we are dying now. And the whole point of the story, when I look back at it, is that the creator always knew Uguti how things were going to happen, but because of his foreknowledge, he did not stop them from happening. Everything gets to play a part in painting this beautiful canvas of creation. And so the story goes, Uguti Unuabu was walking with this message of hope, and he got distracted by upkwebezane and all these cool fruits, and he started eating. And chameleons, when you look at a chameleon, you literally see that. And then Intulo was very focused, and obviously lizards are very quick, and he gets to humanity first, and he proclaims mortality to all human beings and all of those things. And then by the time that Unuabu gets to the people, there's a point where he realizes, oh flip, I still need to go and do this thing. And when he tells people what's happening, he's the one that dies first, because the human being's killer. It's funny because when we were growing up, we hated chameleons for that very reason, And I think it was such a very powerful thing, because in this world we are faced with both life and death consistently, but somehow life keeps on going on. You see people's resilience. You see how people rise up even during the struggle. You know what I'm saying? And it's funny because either good or evil, light and darkness, still points back to the same creator. So in his foreknowledge, he knew whether something good or bad happens, it's still going to point to him. And he knew the different functions of these two animals. He could have given the blue-headed lizard the message of life. You know what I'm saying? But where is the balance? You know what I'm saying? It was going to be too easy. And so he still allows for izinto zenzeke without him coming in and interfering. And so anybody that has that question of, if God is so good, why do evil things happen and all of those things? In his foreknowledge and in his wisdom, he still allows people to make a decision, whether good or bad. And because he makes them make decisions, it still points back to him. And that's a very intelligent design, And so I didn't think about this when I was in grade 1, obviously, this English and all this information. But when I thought about it, I was like, it's such a simple story, but I've seen it. I've literally been living it. And she said she told a lot of stories. It's a story of Impungushe and a donkey, and all of these stories have like characters. Even in life, you see these characters. You see a character of Impisi. Impisi was always seen as this brutal. He's just a brute. You know what I'm saying? But he's strong. And then Impungushi is a sly one, you know what I'm saying? Always shortchanges people. Nokwacha as well, you know what I'm saying? Ipubesi. There was always these different animals that have all of these different characteristics, and you see how they work out in life, in society, in relationships as well. And so, yeah, bless her heart and may her soul rest in peace.
I love the message of the story, right? The message of light and dark, and you choosing to let life sort of move on, right? And I think in life we have different seasons where we meet different people and we meet different influences, right? And you growing up in KZN and then moving to Cape Town, you've obviously met a lot of different influences, right? What would you say are some of the influences that you've met, whether it's people or experiences, and how do those show up in your sound?
Yeah, I think moving from KZN to Cape Town was a big adaptation? Adjustment is the right word. Because you're coming from a small farm, and now you're living in this big city, and it can be very scary. I get when people coming from here and then they go, I want to study in Cape Town. It's very big, especially when you're coming from the Lali lands and all of that. And so I went to Cape Town at the time. I was part of a Christian organization, and so it was very nice to be around those people. And I remember when I stopped working for the organization, because even in the organization I was doing music, we were working in hard to reach communities within Cape Town, Cape Flats, and townships and all of that. When I stopped working there, I feel it feels like every single time I step out of something, it feels like now I'm in the real world. It just keeps on getting more real. I remember noticing that the type of community that I had also sheltered me a lot from what actually is really happening out there. I think it was very important. I mean, for everybody, it's very important to be surrounded by community of people maybe that are a little bit older than you, that are living a type of life that you also want to live. I think sorry to say that, the dumbest thing you can do is want to be an architect, but you're only friends with doctors. There's a lot of, as a musician, I always hung around with artists, people that were as passionate as I was with something that I wanted to do, but not only passionate because they're gonna receive something out of it at the end of the day. It was people that were like, I am an artist, not because I learned this thing, but this is who I am. If it doesn't work out, that's not why I'm gonna either be an artist or not an artist. This is who I am by nature. And so for some reason, I always crossed paths with people that had that kind of intention. And it's something that was very beautiful because it's something that I desired even in the position that I'm in now. I look at someone like Tandozit, that I've worked with, has that intention. This is something that she's always wanted to do. There's nothing flashy about it. It's like, we do this thing, and the intention is to make music that is going to last forever. It's to make music that is going to grow with the people. It's to make music that is for the people, by the people, and not this, it's going to sell. It's going to be so, you know what I'm saying? And not that that is wrong, because you have to also get paid from what you do. But I think the importance of it is that getting paid is not a means to an end. This is not why you do it, it's a bonus thing that happens because because of the intention of what you had, so yeah.
It's very fascinating that earlier on you mentioned Uzwala 7 as one of the people that you used to listen to when you were still rapping. There are two songs that I listen to, and I know but the one is going to come after the other one.
Yeah.
And that has to be Ngoma kaZwala 7, which happens to be my favorite, Ulwandle.
Yeah.
So it's either ndizayidlala before Owozamdana, or I'm going to play just after Owozamdana.
Yeah.
And if one was to listen to Ezingoma Zethu and look at the lyrics and the progression of those two songs, they would see that they start off as a conversation between Utata and Umdwanake.
Yeah.
And somehow, esphakathini iguquke bengathi it's something romantic.
Yeah.
What drew you with the Owozamdana, particularly to telling that story?
Yeah. I was actually looking at a face of a child when I started the song, and then I had met my girlfriend, my now wife, but my girlfriend at the time. Then it turned into like kind of a romantic song. Children have the power to make an impact in Bilonyako, but they don't even know it and they don't care about it. There's something innocent about Ingane, you know what I'm saying? And I think that's been my creative process most of the time. I don't write a song because I'm like, I want this thing to make people cry. We don't care about what's going to happen after that and all of those things. And I think that's the perspective that I saw in the eyes of that little child when I started to write it. And I wrote it from a perspective of a father speaking to their daughter. Like these, like, they're like diaper machines. Like when you think of a child, they just poop your money, literally. But they are so special too, like the type of connection that they have with their parents, it is so beautiful. But they're not trying to be like that. They're not trying to draw that kind of attention. It's just so natural. And why can't our songs be like that as well, where I'm not trying to make people feel something. I'm just being honest about who I am. And I think that's what, I believe that's what every artist wants to be like, where they want to be that connected to what they do. And it's not about, I want people to respond in this way. You don't want people to You just want people to hear what they hear and take what they take away from it. I mean, at least that's what that's what we should be desiring. And so I think that's what happened with Who Was Undone. Because I noticed that when that type of stuff happens, it's not something that you can repeat just like that all the time. I can just do this thing. You have to be really like so connected and grounded in that moment when you make it. You won't know if you are actually grounded too. You will figure it out at some point when you realize how people respond to it. So yeah.
Also, there's a project that you collaborated on,
Yes.
Unyazi,
Yeah, bo.
and you're speaking about honesty ngoku.
Yeah.
Unyazi comes at a difficult stage of your life.
Yeah.
Both with Uyov,
Your love, yeah.
Yoav, thank you. And I believe Kuba, it was a difficult time in both your lives.
Mm.
Now, how do you find the language to speak about something that you're still going through?
You don't find it, you know. I think when you're going through it and you want to express it you want to express it in that moment, because I think it's the choice to want to express it. Some people go through things and they just never talk about it. How many people are like that? You know, there's people who've gone through stuff, but they still haven't opened about it. They chose to do that. But when they do open up about it, once they make that choice, the language will come. You know what I'm saying? And so I think in that time, we went in there wanting to just write a couple of songs, and then life happened, and it was really happening. I lost my sister in the process. He lost his mother in the process as well. You know, it was a lot of grieving. And I think what we definitely knew we wanted to do is that it was also fresh fresh off COVID and whatnot, and people had been going through a lot of things. People wanted to reconnect. People wanted to, you know, they were wondering how they were going to live their lives after such a pandemic and all of those things. And so when we were writing this album, you know, like life was really, really happening, and there was only two choices. You could either just pack it away and be like, you know what, this is not the right time to do it. It's not the right time to release it. Let's figure it out in 5 years time and all of those things, because it's not realistic to be like, oh, we'll just grieve for 2 weeks and come back. Grief doesn't have a time limit. You know what I'm saying? And so we pressed on during that, and we just chose to be honest about where we were at. And I think when you've made that choice to just open yourself up, language you fake, you know what I'm saying? And I can't explain to you how it happens, but because the honesty and the choice to make it is from a pure place. You're not trying to make money off it. You're really just being like, you know what? Because another thing about it is that it's helping you in the process when you're able to communicate it. Have you noticed ukuthi umuntu that has gone through something and they've battled that for years, ukuthi the only time where they really start healing is when they're talking about it. And when they're talking, they are finding the language when they're talking about it. It's not that the language was never there. It was always there, but they just chose to not use it in that moment because there's so much that they actually went through, you know. And so there's something that happens when you open up your mouth about something that automatically brings healing to you. And when that healing happens, you don't mind other people hearing about that, because it's not from a point of being a victim. It's a point of a victor, somebody who has accepted, somebody who has realized something.
I love that. Thank you so much for your honesty, Jabulile. We're going to continue this conversation. Right now, we're going to take a break. You're watching Let's Talk. We'll be right back.
A warm welcome back to Let's Talk. This is the NEF edition. We are in conversation with Zulu folk musician Jabulile Majola. We're speaking all things great music and life. Jabulile, welcome back, and we're still continuing with the conversation.
Let's go.
Yes. So I love how Usta reintroduced the show and came back from the ad break, right? So you consider yourself a Zulu folk artist, but most people would describe you as a South African R&B artist. What is the separation between the two?
I don't know. I don't really think about it that much because again, as I said, ukuthi umculo is not necessarily with, this is what I want people to take away from it. People take away what they take away from it. Personally, I don't know what they hear in that sounds R&B. But then again, I also leave it up for people to translate it. You know, I've had people call it Afro soul as well. You know, it doesn't really faze me like that. I think what I'm focused on is just making the music, and then people, because another thing about it is that you will write a song and to you it means a certain thing, but to someone else it means something else. You don't go in there and be like, no, but I wanted it to mean this, and it only means this. Music opens up to people. I think music changes as it goes to people. It translates different to people because of what people are also going through. You know what I'm saying? What they are trying to figure out, and so. I don't know, whatever they think it is, some people might think it's hip hop.
Going back to the rap genre. I love that, right? So you started with Christian music.
Yeah.
Like that was your first introduction to music. Yeah. And now you're doing Zulu folk.
Yeah.
What was the transition like for you, and when did the shift happen? At what point were you like, okay, Jabulile's identity is now no longer in Christian music or rooted in Christian music.
Yeah.
It is now rooted in Zulu folk.
Yeah. So I remember I had this, it's a good question because someone asked me actually on radio, like, oh, you were making gospel music. And then, you know, the message of a gospel is not a genre. It's like, gospel is not a genre. And so it doesn't matter what you classify yourself as. You know what I'm saying? It's very important to understand that gospel is a message. You know what I'm saying? And so it can shape shift through other means, because if we classify it only as a genre, then it's got limitations. There's certain people who will not go and try and hear the gospel in the church, but there's certain people that will love to hear it on the streets, because that's where it is. If we can understand that it's not a construct, it's only in this way, it's very important, because then it's actually really freeing, you know, especially when I'm doing what I'm doing. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be a folk musician for the rest of my life, because there's all these other genres that I'm very into, you know what I'm saying? It's not me limiting gospel goods. It's only going to be in this way and spoken about in this way. It's always going to find its way, because it's also not what I do, it's who I am as well. And if I'm in a certain room, it doesn't change. It doesn't make me that room. It makes me who I am in that room, you know. And so that's the distinction, I'd say.
I absolutely love also, because it's like you just articulating into that I couldn't articulate. I've been sort of saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Ukuba, you can listen to Mpaganga, you'll find the word.
Yeah.
You can listen to House Gom.
Yeah.
It's the message that is the gospel.
Yeah. And isn't that what as angathi kamala ubheka umuzi luthuli from I think I remember being in a taxi from Durban to Maritzburg, no, Greytown. And I was hearing album yakle ethi incwadi. Sithethelele mabizona zethu siyanga. Maskandi lo, you know what I'm saying? It's very powerful, because if you just limit it to it must be like this because it sounds like this and it comes from this, then you're also not being realistic. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Jesus my number disciples out would go out to all the world and make disciples and teach them to observe. What he doesn't say, go to the church only. You know what I'm saying? And so it's weird that human beings want to compartmentalize. We want to like feel like, okay, this is where something belongs, because that is how it works with our brains. You know what I'm saying? But it's more than that. You know, I remember having a conversation with my manager, Eti. You know, culture is very important to place you and where you know you where you belong, and kind of informs who you are. But it can be a limitation if you can't accept the actual context that you're in. You know what I'm saying? It's like being a person, Zulu, but you are stuck in Europe somewhere. They don't understand you. You know what I'm saying? It's very beautiful to know who you are. But if you knowing who you are is also limiting you in some spaces, you need to be open. Be water, my friend. You need to be adaptable. You know,
be ice, just be water. Exactly. Be diluted.
Yeah.
Now you're standing in the beginning of what seems to be a very long road. Yeah. In your journey, Ngoku, Panga phakathi kuwe, what story lies within you that you haven't told you? What's keeping you awake? Singalindela ntoni ngoku from you?
Yeah. I think everybody has like a beginning, and a beginning they are saying something. I had a conversation with a friend of mine with Ngiti. I personally wouldn't hold on to the kind of views that you're holding on to for dear life, because as time goes, your life changes and your mind changes about certain things. It's funny. There's certain things that we were like, I am never gonna agree with to this, but now your mind is changing. Oh wait, I think I see it like this. I personally believe that the reason why I don't know how long I'm gonna stay, but the reason why I'm gonna continue to do this is because every single day I'm realizing new things about myself. I'm realizing new things about people. I'm realizing new things about the journey that I'm on. I always expected things to happen a certain way, but 90% of the time they're not happening like that. Then you figure out, it's okay, wait, how do I think? Why do I think that it's going to happen like that? And so I think the fact that we are alive, and we're going to grow. And because we grow, we will change. I think that's just the reality of what life is. And that's what is going to, that's one of the only things that will make me continue. It doesn't change the story of my beginning, but I think the decisions that I make as I go along, that's what is gonna be interesting, because we see where that leads me.
Thank you so much, Jabulile. This has been a very interesting conversation. Now, we were talking to Jabulile Majola about his music and his story. And I think for me, the one thing that stood out is that life is an ever-changing journey. And in order to exist in life, you just need to be open to becoming and being and to learning.
Yeah, bo.
And also, the light doesn't have to be at the end of the tunnel. It can be any way, ngaphandle kwe end of the tunnel, because you have to get something that's going to keep you until the end of the tunnel.
Nazoge.
Jabulile, thank you so much for sharing your story and
for
sharing your journey with us. Nkosi kakhulu.
Ngiyabonga bafethu.
Thank you so much. Now, we're reminded that music is more than the melody that we listen to. It can be healing and it can be a bringer of hope. Thank you to you guys at home for watching and for listening to this edition of Let's Talk. Stay tuned for more upcoming episodes with your favorite artists.
Igama lami ndingu Unathi Sandi, and we keep you we urge you rather to keep talking, because silence changes nothing.
That's all.
This has been Let's Talk. Goodbye.